Welcome, everybody. Good Shabbat. Thank you, everybody, for gathering today online, and for those that will hear the message afterwards online. This is our next to last gathering with the particular topic of the letter of James. Next week, we'll be concluding our teachings in the letter of James and announcing our next discussion group, which will probably be on Ecclesiastes, which is one of the wisdom traditions from the Hebrew Bible. So, which is very, very interesting and powerful, especially when understood properly. But let's continue with the letter of James, part 6, and next week we'll conclude with this topic. James is very much in line with Jesus. James the Just was the biological brother of Mar Yeshua, the Master Jesus. And throughout, we see the concept of faith without works is dead. If you're not doing something, if you're not demonstrating your religious ideals and your religious beliefs through concrete actions, then James in the letter of James says that your religion is worthless. Those are his own words, as we discussed in prior discussions. So today, James emphasizes this point more as he begins to conclude his letter. So how you live your life demonstrates your wisdom. A lot of different religions and a lot of different spiritual sects will quote verses from their sacred scripture. Many of them even have it memorized. And this isn't just Christians. I'm very universal in my outlook. I'm very ecumenical. I'm very interfaith, as you'll even see in today's discussion. So I believe in the validity of all true spiritual paths, but all true spiritual paths must walk the walk as well as talk the talk. If you're just talking the talk, James the Just says that your religion is worthless because you're not making a beneficial impact on humanity and the planet. You're not somehow benefiting all sentient beings. In other words, all the emanations of God, whether it be humans, animals, nature, etc. And here in James 3:13, it says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom." So here, James is saying that, if you really think yourself religious, or if you are a spiritual being, then I should be able to see that. I should be able to hear that. How? I should be able to hear it through the compassionate words you say to others. I should be able to see it through your actions that you do in the world and your community. And the idea of your works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom. Gentleness means with compassion, with fairness, with justice. This is the kind of actions that we should be doing. So our thoughts, our words, and our deeds should be in line with our spiritual principles. We shouldn't state spiritual principles and then do hateful things in the world. We shouldn't say, oh, Jesus was so compassionate, and then not care about the needs of people in our own communities. So here, true religion, true spirituality is being the change that you want to see in the world, as Gandhi was famous for having said. So we have to enact, if we want the world to be a better place, if we want to be happier in our communities, if we want more peace throughout the world, then that starts with the individual. We have to be the change. Our thoughts have to be positive. Our words have to be uplifting. Our actions have to demonstrate goodness. If we're not doing that, how can we ask somebody else to do that? How can we encourage somebody else to do that? How can we preach sermons that tell people to be good when we ourselves are not yet good? So first, James is saying here that if you think yourself wise, and we might be book smart, there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is picking up a book and saying, oh, I know what I read. Wisdom is putting that into practice in your life. So here, he's asking, who thinks that you're wise? Well, if you're truly wise, that means that you're putting Jesus's teachings into action daily with good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And you are changing not only yourself, but your spiritual energy and your positivity and your joy becomes infectious to those around you. We may not change everybody around us, but we can send out positive vibrations that at least limit the negativity that flies around the world. Only truly spiritual sensitive people want to really change and really do the teachings of Mar Yeshua, the Master Jesus. Most Christians just stay, they're followers of Jesus. But in the end, when they're knocking on the gates of heaven, so to speak, saying, Master, Master, Jesus will say, I don't know you. And again, it's not because these people don't believe in Jesus. Nobody would be knocking on Jesus' door if they didn't believe in him. So why does he not know them? He doesn't know them because they didn't do his halakha. In doing Jesus's teachings, his halakha is what creates that disciple relationship with Mar Yeshua. It's what creates that true personal relationship. I know that a lot of modern Christians and beliefs will say that your personal relationship with Jesus is all about belief. But all you have to do is read the Christian Testament to know that's not true. Master, Master, let me in. And he says, truly, I don't know you. These people obviously believed in Jesus, but yet they didn't have a personal relationship enough to get to the door to heaven or wherever it is they were seeking to go. So if we want to demonstrate, if we want to share our religion with the world, the best way is not to go in the street corner and start screaming or showing posters with obscene messages and words and offensive things on them. Show people your joy. Show people your compassion. Show people your fairness. Show people your beauty in the sense of spiritual beauty. And make people say, why are you always smiling? Why are you always happy? Why are you always so helpful? Well, do you really want to know? Let me share my spiritual experience with you. In my opinion, that's true evangelism. Not trying to push your beliefs down somebody else's throat. Next, we have a topic called Desire is the Enemy. James 4, 1 through 3. Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and do not have it, so you commit murder. And you covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly in order to spend what you get on your pleasures. This is James's teaching. And doesn't this sound a lot like Buddha? The root of suffering is attachment. James would concur fully with Buddha in this statement. What is a craving? A craving is a desire for something. What do most humans crave? Humans crave pleasure, right? We crave happiness. We crave fulfillment. Who do we crave happiness, fulfillment, and pleasure for? Me, myself, and I, right? And maybe a few people that we love, our wife, our husband, our kids, our best friend, maybe. But most people, if we're honest with ourselves, are concerned with our own comfort first, and then maybe some close loved ones. When it comes to ourselves as individuals, almost all human beings on the planet seek permanent pleasure in impermanent things. And this is the base of all human suffering. It's the base of all human evil. The desire to have impermanent things give you permanent pleasure. The only thing that can give us permanent pleasure is the relationship between our soul and God in its ultimate union. God is the only permanent pleasure there is. Everything else will disappoint us or dissolve because it's impermanent. but yet we still run after impermanent things to give us happiness. And once we get it, what happens? Think about it with anything: education, a household item, a car, a house, clothing. Are you really happy when you get what you crave? Don't you just want more? So there's never an end to craving. And as long as we desire things that are impermanent to give us permanent pleasure, permanent satisfaction, we're going to suffer. And James points out the catastrophic consequences of this. You want something and you don't have it, so you kill somebody. This isn't from ancient antiquity. Watch the news. It happens every day. You covet something, you want something, you can't get it. So you steal it, you engage in disputes or conflicts to get it. Right? Look at politics in the United States. That's all you see is disputes and conflicts because they want something and they can't get it. Then James says, you do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly in order to spend what you get on your pleasures. So how can you ask wrongly? He's talking about prayer. Think about the Master's Prayer or the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our spiritual sustenance. Release us from our debts as we release those who have debts with us. Lead us not into the test, but deliver us from all evil. When Jesus was asked by his disciples how to pray, Jesus was very specific. Our and us. It wasn't my Father who art in heaven, it was our Father. It wasn't release me from the consequences of my sin, it's release us. So who is our? Who is us? It's all of humanity. Jesus came for all of humanity, not just Christians, not just self-proclaimed Christians, not just for this church or any other church. He came for all of humanity. So when he taught his disciples how to pray, he taught us how to pray for everyone. If you're praying just for yourself or just for the closest loved ones near you that somehow benefit you and give you pleasure, think about it, and you're not praying correctly. And that's why we get frustrated, because we're asking for things for ourselves. Improve my health, or improve the health of my husband who somehow benefits me, or improve the health of my children that somehow benefits me. And I'm not saying it's not good to pray for the health of your husband, your children, or your friends. We should. But we should do it for their benefit, not for our benefit. So we have to understand that prayer, when rightly done, is prayer for all of humanity's evolution. So it's not even correct to pray for your own spiritual evolution in a singular way. You should pray for your spiritual evolution in the context of all of humanity's spiritual evolution. You should pray for the release of your negative karma, so to speak, in the context of asking God to release everybody of the negative consequences of their sin, even our enemies, right? So in the end, when we look at it, unfulfilled desire is what causes all suffering within us, all war, all family disputes, all when you're fired at work, it's probably due to this too. You have a frustrated craving at work that you can't get done. But everything centers around desire. The one thing we should desire is God, to come closer to God. That somehow I can come closer to God consciously. God is always around. God is right within us. He's right within our hearts. The Abba is very present. But we should be praying God, reveal yourself to me. Remove the blinders off of my spiritual eye so that I can see you. But James and Buddha would definitely agree. James would definitely say, amen, brother. The root of suffering is attachment, unfulfilled craving or desire. So we have to watch our desires. Watch how we emotionally react when we don't get what we want from our wife, from our boss, from ourselves, right? Think about it well. So submission to God is needed. And the Hebrew Aramaic term for submission is naham. Naham. So James 4, 7 through 10, it says, submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning, and your joy into dejection. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. That's James 4, 7 through 10. So the main idea in Judaic thought, we have to remember that James the Just represented Jewish Christianity, or what could be called Jewish Christianity, which would be the renewal of the covenant that Mar Yeshua did for Judaism of his time. Not that all Jews accepted what Jesus taught, but what Jesus probably thought was that he was renewing the covenant with God. He was bringing people back to God. And when we read the Hebrew Testament, many times you see instances where the Jewish people fall away from the covenant made with God. And then there's some interaction between the Jewish people and God, or a certain prophet and the Jewish people and God that helps God to bring the Jewish people back into the fold. And it tends to be that humanity, once things are going good, we forget about God. And then things go downhill from there. So the main idea in the Hebrew Testament and in Judaism is that if we aren't following the various mitzvot or commandments of the Hebrew Testament, then we are sinning. And this somehow creates a separation between a soul and God. If you're not doing what God wants for us in the Hebrew Testament, then there's some sort of separation that occurs. And to heal that rift between a soul and God, one has to return to the way of God. It's called teshuvah, or shuv, to return. And the way that you return is to submit yourselves to God. And John the Baptist did this through baptism. You would be baptized, and that would be how you would submit to God. And Mar Yeshua perpetuated the baptism of John the Baptist after he was beheaded by the Herods. So he continued that tradition, that symbol that John the Baptist created of, I am purifying myself to make a return to God. It didn't mean that you were perfect. It didn't mean that you were saved. Baptism merely meant that I am submitting to God and I am symbolically cleansing myself, my mind, my words, my heart, my body, so that I can now seriously take the path of God, make a true effort to return to God, to have my soul return to God. My soul emanated from God, and now I want to go back to God consciously, have a conscious union with that. So to do that, we have to submit ourselves to God. And that's what Jesus said. Jesus's true method for being saved was submit yourselves to God and have fidelity with or do my teaching. So submission to God was embedded in all of Jesus's teachings. And here James, being a disciple of Mar Yeshua, the Master Jesus, is giving the same teaching as Jesus. So this is definitely a probable historical teaching of Jesus. Submit yourselves to God, return to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. The devil is the same cravings James talked about earlier. The devil is the lower mind, it is the ego mind, it is the mind that's all about I, me, and mine. It's the selfish mind. It's the emotionally reactive mind. It is the mind that seeks anything else other than God alone. Whether or not you believe in the devil as a personification of some demon in some realm, that's up to you. But the main teaching of the devil, of Satan, Satan means adversary. The biggest adversary is our own ego, our own cravings that cause frustration and division in this world, in our families, in our communities, in our countries, in this world, in this universe, because the ripples go out much further than earth. Shakes all of heaven. So to resist the devil is to be content with what you have. Not that you can't strive to have more things. I mean, we all should create comfort for ourselves, but we should also use some of our surplus to help those that are vulnerable in our communities. So to resist the devil means to be selfless, to be compassionate, to be giving. That if somebody hurts us, we're just and fair with them. We don't try to hurt them more. You know, my husband cheated on me, so I'm going to cheat on him with 5 guys, right? So resisting the devil means resisting our lower nature and acting, thinking, speaking, doing from our high nature, from our soul nature, which is the image of God. We should always take the higher road. That's how you resist the devil. The devil is also the Yetzer Hara, which is just a fancy way of saying what we've already said. The Yetzer Hara is an inclination of the heart. There are 2 inclinations in the human heart, according to Jesus's teachings and the teachings of the Jews. There's the Yetzer Hara, which is your selfish inclination. Even evil inclination is how it's sometimes translated. And it's the lower nature that seeks only for itself. And the more we act from this Yetzer Hara, the further we go away from God. But when we resist the devil, we're actually acting with the other inclination, which is the Yetzer HaTov, which is the divine inclination, the good inclination, the selfless inclination. And when we act with the selfless inclination, the Yetzer HaTov, we become very magnetic. God runs to the person who acts through the Yetzer HaTov, the person who is compassionate, the person who releases people of their debts, the person who selflessly serves the hungry, the poor, the elderly, the sick, those in prisons, all the things that Jesus taught in the Christian Testament. Cleanse your hands means to purify your actions, right? Are the physical deeds I'm doing today, do they lead me towards God or do they lead me away from God? This is what we have to ask ourselves. Are the thoughts I'm thinking leading me towards conscious union with God or leading me away from it? Are the words I'm saying appropriate to be said in front of God, appropriate to be said in front of Mar Yeshua, appropriate to be said in church? Do my words lead me towards God or away from God? So whenever he says cleanse your hands, he means to do only good, wholesome, divine actions that are in accordance with your spiritual principles. And purify your hearts means to purify both your thoughts and the words that are the results of the consequences of your thoughts. Because we have to remember that the Hebrew Aramaic word for heart is lebab, and lebab means the seat of the mind. So the understanding of Jesus about heart was the mind. He wasn't speaking about your physical heart or even necessarily the emotional heart, but he was speaking about the seat of the mind, the seat of consciousness. Purify it so that God is first, God alone. It's like Saint Teresa of Avila. God alone is all that we ever need. Let nothing scare you. Let nothing frighten you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance will bring you to victory. God alone. It's a poem of the exalted Saint Teresa, a true mystic of the Christian tradition. So to be double-minded means that sometimes you act from the Yetzer HaTov, the good inclination, and sometimes from the Yetzer Hara. The goal over time is to starve out the Yetzer Hara until it no longer exists. And that's the importance. Every true master teaches compassionate action, to do something for somebody else, because it's not to look good or to be beneficial, but whenever you do selfless service for other people, this makes you do something for somebody else other than you. It makes you of benefit to the world. It accrues good karma, so to speak. It accrues spiritual merit. It accrues spiritual virtues. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy into dejection. No, James does not want you to be depressed for the rest of your life. He's just using hyperbole, just like Jesus uses hyperbole. A lot of people are always happy or trying to find joy in life, but they forget that they've even sought God. So if we're laughing because we have money or we have a good job or because we're going to the bar, or because we're doing this, do what you need to do, but set your priorities straight. If you put God first, every virtue will come. And every limiting habit that we have will disappear. You just have to take one step today and then take the next step tomorrow and keep on putting one foot in front of the other. You take one step towards God and he's going to take 10 towards you. This has always been my spiritual experience. Let your joy turn into dejection. He means worldly joy. He means if your joy is only based in the world, the earth, physical things, your house, your home, your car, then you should become dejected because you're not growing spiritually, right? So by all means, James wants us to laugh. He wants us to have joy, but he wants us to have a priority towards God first. Don't just seek pleasures in the world that are impermanent, that are going to disappoint you, that are going to go away, break down, die. Seek the eternal union, the ecstasy of soul union with God. That's what he wants for all of us. Humble yourselves before the Lord and he will exalt you. If you do the halakha of Mar Yeshua, then you become part of the Son of Mankind, collective Messiah, the communion of saints. You become exalted and you gain co-sovereignty in the Malkuth of God, the rulership of God. You help with the evolution of all the earth and all of humanity, and even beyond that. So again, resisting the devil means to resist our cravings that eventually cause frustration or division, hatefulness in the world. Our last verses for the day: be a doer and not a judge, is what James is encouraging us. So James 4, verses 11 through 12. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers and sisters. Whoever speaks evil against another or judges another speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. So who then are you to judge your neighbor? So James, who was a high priest, one of the last high priests of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, he's speaking from his understanding of Torah, or the Hebrew Testament, which would have been Jesus's Bible, of course. When we judge people, we're doing something wrong. And he very cleverly points out why. If you judge the law, meaning you hold people accountable for their actions and you're judging them for what you think they've done wrong, you're not doing the law, but you're a judge. And then he points out quite cleverly, there is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy, and that's God. God is the one that gave the law, So he's the only one that can judge whether people are adequately following that law or not. He's the only one that can show mercy or forgiveness when his law is broken. That's the logic here. So here, James says that we think we're God if we judge others. We're placing ourselves as equal to Godhead when we judge other people. So this is the problem that James is saying, that we as humans have no right to judge because there's only one judge, and that's God. The only thing we have the right to do is to do the law, to do the mitzvot, to do the commandments, to do the different things that are listed in Torah. And also by extension to do the things that Jesus has taught us in his halakha. So that's very important. James is saying that a spiritual person will be a doer of the law. They're worried about their business, the quality, the purification of their hearts and their soul. They're not focusing on other people. They're not criticizing every issue that comes up for other people. So this is very important to understand. And with this, we'll bring it to a close. The reason why judging is so bad is because when we judge people, there's a difference between giving somebody advice or helping them with pure love. That's different. And we should give spiritual advice only when asked. It's a very big sin to force your advice on somebody else. Let them ask for help. Or say, I'd really like to help you. May I give you some helpful advice? And then only give it if they say yes. But when we judge people, or when a person feels judged, this brings up a negative vibration. This brings up anger, division, feelings of being embarrassed. And this creates negative vibrations in our environments, in our cities, in our countries, in our world, that make it easier for more anger to flourish. So judgment is never helpful. If you really want to correct humanity, do the teachings of Jesus. One saint that does the law, that does the teachings of Jesus, that shines goodness, an example, your positive, joyful example will always change more people than judging them. Amen, amen, amen. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother of the universe, we bow down before you. Help us to really embody these teachings that James has so graciously given to us. May we do these things and purify our hearts. May we be doers of the halakha, not hearers and not judges over everybody else. Amen. 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 May our light shine in this world so that all may see the good that we do and give glory to the Abba. Amen. 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 Good Shabbat, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. I'll see you next Friday.